All right, I'm looking at the clues by Sam. Today's puzzle is difficulty hard. Now, I did an evil one yesterday that was made for me by the creator. If you didn't see that video, link in the description, up in the corner, and all that jazz. You know where to find links, but we're going to see if we can find all the innocents and criminals today. No cop has an innocent directly above them. Okay, well, where are all the cops? We have Zed and Vince are the cops, so they have to have criminals above them, okay, which should make it easy for them to catch those criminals because they're right next to them. All right, exactly 2 of Gary's 7 innocent neighbors also neighbor Alex. So Gary's 7 innocent neighbors. I mean, Gary has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 neighbors. Actually, everybody has 8 neighbors unless they're on the edge of a grid. But Gary has 8 neighbors and 7 of them are innocent. So he only has 1 criminal neighbor, which is crazy. Also neighbor Alex. 2 of Gary's, so that's going to be Brian and Evie because those are the only neighbors they have in common. Ruth and Brian have an equal number of criminal neighbors. Ruth and Brian. Well, Brian can have at most 2 because Gary can have at most Gary's gonna have exactly 1 criminal. So one of those 3 could be a criminal, plus Gary could be. So Brian could have at most 2 criminal neighbors. Ruth and Brian have an equal number. So Ruth can only have at most 2. We don't know. Okay. There's going to be a lot of innocents in the puzzle today, I think. There's an equal number of criminals in rows 2 and 5. Equal number of criminals in rows 2 and 5. 2 and 5. And, okay, so Brian can have at most 2 criminal neighbors, which means Ruth can have at most 2, and Thor is one of them. So Ruth can only have at most 1 neighbor down here. Criminal neighbor. So there's at most 2 criminals in row 5. Is that helpful? I don't know if that's helpful. 2 of Gary's 7 innocent neighbors also neighbor Alex. That's these 2. Gary and Alex. Those are the only neighbors that they share. Gary has 7 innocent neighbors, which means he has 1 criminal neighbor. And if Katie or Lucy are a criminal, Gary will have to be a criminal, because Ruth will then have 2. And Ruth and Brian. Brian would have to have, because the only neighbor that Brian has that's not a neighbor of Gary is Gary. If Katie or Lucy is a criminal, Gary has to be a criminal. So the only way that Gary's not a criminal, I think, is if Jason is a criminal. If Jason is a criminal, that's Gary's 1. So all of these are innocent. If Gary were innocent, Brian... No, because Brian would have no criminal neighbors then. Right. Okay, so this is interesting. If Gary is a criminal... No, if Gary... Well, either way, it doesn't matter. Forget Gary for a second. Gary has 1 criminal neighbor. If it's Alex, Chloe, or Hilda, then Brian... That's a criminal for... Neighbor for... Oh, but no, because then Gary could be innocent. Gary's innocent, and one of these 3 is a criminal. Brian has 1. Ruth has 1. These are all innocent. Is that possible? Ruth would have 1 criminal, and all these would be innocent? I think so. It's an equal number of criminals in row 2 and 5. But... if Gary is innocent, Ruth's already got 1 criminal neighbor. Brian has to have 1 criminal neighbor. Alex, Chloe, or Hilda would have to be a criminal. These 3 would all be innocent. Martin, Paula, Wanda, Xena, Zed would all have to be innocent. But Vince could still be a criminal, and Hilda or Isaac could be a criminal. And you'd be fine on the number of criminals in rows 2 and 5. Ruth and Brian have an equal number of criminal neighbors. Okay, well, can Katie or Lucy be a criminal? I think they can. It just forces Gary to be a criminal. No, no. Okay, I was getting my people mixed up. I was doing Gary's neighbors. It's Brian's neighbors. If Katie or Lucy is a criminal, okay, forget about Gary for a second. If Katie or Lucy is a criminal, one of these two, they are the one neighbor around Gary, right? So Hilda, Chloe, and Alex are all innocent. The only criminal neighbor Brian could have then is Gary. So you could have at most one, but Ruth would then have two, which is not possible. Katie and Lucy both have to be innocent. I was thinking neighbors of Gary being the same as Ruth, not neighbors of Brian. Okay, yeah. All right, Lucy and Martin have two innocent neighbors in common. Lucy and Martin have two innocent neighbors in common. Well, they have Hilda, Isaac, and Ruth, so two of those are innocent. Martin and Evie have an equal number of criminal neighbors. Martin, where's Martin? Martin right there. And Evie have an equal number of criminal neighbors. Evie can have at most two. Lucy and Martin have two innocent neighbors in common. So Hilda, Isaac, and Ruth. One of those three is a criminal. Because two of them are innocents. One of those three is a criminal. We know one of Alex, Chloe, Hilda, and Jason are a criminal. If Jason is a criminal, Gary has to be a criminal. If Alex, Chloe, or Hilda are a criminal, we don't know about Gary. Two of Gary's seven are also named Alex. There's an equal number of criminals in rows 2 and 5. Ruth and Brian. Equal number of criminal neighbors. Ruth and Brian. If Jason... Yeah, I don't quite see it. Okay. Martin and Evie. So we know Martin and Evie have an equal number of criminal neighbors. Oh, well, Martin has one. Two. Martin has two. Because we know these three are two innocents and a criminal. Martin has two criminal neighbors. Evie has to have two criminal neighbors. Alex and Jason can't both be criminals because they neighbor Gary. Gary is a criminal. And Alex and Jason are one of each, meaning Hilda and Chloe are innocent, which means Isaac and Ruth are one of each. Okay, the plot thickens. Yes, it does. Ruth and Brian, I think I'm not going to hide that yet. Being surrounded by all these innocents is so dull, Gary says. Well, sorry. Lucy and Martin. Okay, we've used that. Martin and Evie. We've used that. Okay, so we've got one each. Martin is one of 10 innocents on the edge. Okay, Martin is innocent. One of 10 innocents on the edge. And we know there are 14 people around the edge, and 2 are already criminals. So... let's not hide that yet. I wonder who Gary's criminal neighbor is. I don't know. Alex or Jason, one of them. Equal number of criminals in rows 2 and 5. There's already one criminal in row 2. And Ruth. Oh, Brian. Oh, we still don't know if Brian has 1 or 2 because it could be Alex and Gary or just Gary. But Ruth can only have one more criminal neighbor. But Ruth could still have 1 down here, and Vince could be a criminal, and we could still have 2 in row 2. Martin is one of 10 innocents on the edge. Oh, right. 10 innocents, there's 14. There can only be 4 criminals. Well, there's exactly 4 criminals. But we have 2, and Alex and Jason are one of each. So that's 3. We only have 1 more criminal. There can only be 1 criminal in row 5, and there has to be 1 criminal in row 5. So Isaac has to be innocent. Ruth is a criminal. Daniel's innocent. We're getting all kinds of stuff. I really want to hear Ruth's song now. Is Ruth singing a song? Oh, this stuff is so epic. I'm going to write a song about it. There we go. There's 1 criminal down here. And if Alex is a criminal, then the criminal has to be one of these 3. If Jason is a criminal, then Vince is a criminal. So actually, Jason and Vince are the same. Okay, exactly 3 of Paula's 5 innocent neighbors. 3 of Paula's 5 innocent neighbors also neighbor Nicole. Nicole and Paula share Jason, Katie, Vince, and Wanda. 3 of them are innocent. So one of those is, and Jason and Vince are the same. So they have to be the innocents and Wanda is the criminal. Oh, aren't they the same? I thought I had figured out that those 2 were the same. Oh, they are, so they have to be innocent. There's 3 innocents. Oh, not 3. Not 3 criminals, 3. Okay, they're both innocent. They're both innocent. I was. Alex is a criminal. Brian has 2 criminal neighbors. Ruth. Oh, Paula. I'm making all kinds of mistakes today. Ruth needs 2 criminal neighbors, but it could be Paula, and these 3 could all be in. Oh, okay. Wow. Sorry, Gary. I did my best. I am not doing my best. Clearly. For a second, I was doubting my own innocence. Yep, me too. Okay, there's an equal number of criminals for us 2 and 5. So there's a criminal down here. 2 of Gary's 7 innocent neighbors, also neighbor Alex. Gary's 7 innocent neighbors, also neighbor. Okay, so we're done with that. 3 of Paula's 5 innocent neighbors, also neighbor Nicole. 3 of Paula's. So, so one of these 2, these are one of each. These are one of each. So that's the criminal. So these 2 are both innocent. You're dull, Gary. There's an odd number of innocents neighboring Nicole. 1, 2. There's 1 down here. That's 3. Paula is a criminal, which means Wanda is innocent and Vince is a criminal. Oh, and it means I made a whole bunch of mistakes. I kind of made a mess of that. I mean, it is a hard puzzle, but still. Those were just silly mistakes. I felt like I was almost just trying to go too quick. I was like, well, I definitely know this, and then just did it without thinking it through, but that's all right. We still got there in the end. Not too bad. So let me know how your solve of this puzzle went today, and if your name was in the grid, and if you were a criminal or an innocent. And of course, be sure to subscribe for more.